Did you guys not like my picture? Nobody said anything. Yeah, that's my toolkit.
Go for wire.
All right. Where to start? So this presentation is about a plugin for WordPress that helps you develop other plugins for WordPress. Okay. This plugin is called GitHub Updater. What is it? It is a plugin. So you'll install it. You'll see it in your plugins with all of your other plugins. You can put it in the MU plugins folder if you don't want it to be able to be deactivated on your client site. So if you don't want them to accidentally click the deactivate button and you always want it to run, there's a folder in your WP content folder. So the typical trio of folders in your WordPress install is admin, includes, and content. All of your themes and plugins go in the WP content folder. And then if you have a folder called mu-plugins, they are plugins that you can't deactivate without FTP access. So you can put it in there too. What's it do? It allows the standard one-click WordPress update process for plugins that are not in the WordPress.org repository. So if you're used to looking for plugins by going to the plugins page, searching for a plugin, WordPress SEO, and then there's a plugin there for you. Fantastic. You click the install button, and then every 2 weeks when you log back into your website, it says you have 8 updates, right? And you just click the update all button and pray that your website doesn't break. Hopefully backed up first. So if you want that process to exist for a plugin or theme that you've created, but you don't want to develop the plugin or theme for everyone in the WordPress.org repository, you would use this plugin. Why? Well, I think I just kind of answered that for you, but it allows you to create custom GitHub. GitHub is a software as a service, themes and plugins to use within the WordPress update system. Any questions on that? Awesome. So, step 1. So I'm going to walk you through how you would do this. So if you are going to create your own plugin and use the GitHub Updater system, this is what you do. Install GitHub Updater plugin. Again, the slides are available publicly, and that is a link to the plugin that you download and install. So you go to the GitHub Updater for GitHub plugin. You visit your website. So SethCarstens.com, you'd go to /admin. I don't know if all of you knew this or not, but in the recent update, you don't have to type WP-admin anymore. You can just go to /admin. It takes you right into the admin. No more WP. You'd go to your plugins. You'd click Add New. Hopefully this is a review for all of you. I expect most of the people in this room would have added a new plugin to their website before. You would upload the zip file that you got from this link over here, and you'd activate the plugin. Pretty simple, I hope. And if I have time, I will demo this for you here. But again, I'm bad with time, so you know. Step 2, you would create a free github.com repository for your plugin to live. So all of your code would be there. You would be using a versioning system, which is a fantastic way to develop a plugin or theme, especially if you will have more than one person developing the code. How many of you have heard of GitHub? Most of you? Okay, let's ask, who hasn't heard of GitHub? 3, 4, okay. Let me give you a little brief, like what this is. GitHub it uses something called Git. That's the name of the website. And Git is a place for your code to live so that you have version control. And version control is kind of like the magic undo button in Control-Z, but infinitely historic. So if you go in and you update your plugin and it completely breaks all the websites, and you're like, I really wish I had what I really wish I knew what my plugin was like a week ago so that I could just go back to that and start again. You can with GitHub and Git. You can go back a week to whenever your code was okay. You can pull that all back into your system, and then you can upload it to your websites, and all of your websites will work again. Some people call that backup. I don't call that backup. I use a system like Backup Buddy or R3Soft's backup on the server to provide full backups of the entire WordPress installation. But it does allow you, as a developer, to kind of go back in time and retrace your steps. GitHub Updater, step 3. Install Git or a user interface that will allow you to put your files up on GitHub. So Git is not FTP. You can't just click and drag your files and they arrive on GitHub. There is a system for moving your files into and out of your Git repository. I'm going to suggest a few to you here. These are not the only ones out there, but they're probably the most commonly used. User interfaces. If you're more comfortable with command line tools, you can go to this first link here, download it, install it on your computer, open up the bash, and command line go to town. You're going to need that anyways, so go ahead and download and install that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to pick a user interface. If you want something where you can just click and drag on the screen and see your files, not unlike FileZilla, then these are your user interface recommendations. Smart Git I've been using for the longest. They also make Smart SVN and Smart Mercurial. So the other version control systems, you can get the same software. It works on Windows and it works on Mac. And I think they even have a Linux. I want to say that they have a Linux installation as well. This is premium. You will pay for this if you want this one. PHP Storm has its own built-in Git management system. I find it to be fantastic, and since then, almost never use SmartGit. PHP Storm also costs money, but PHP Storm isn't just a Git management tool. You can also code in here. It is your IDE. And it's fantastic. I know Mara uses it. Anyone else use PHP Storm? Yeah. She uses it. Oh, that's it. How about Sublime Text? How many use Sublime Text? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Notepad?
Coda.
Oh, Coda, yeah. Our Mac users. Vim. What is it? Vim. You use Vim. Okay, so Notepad.
It's better than
Notepad. And this is SourceTree. You may have heard of SourceTree simply because Bitbucket offers free Git repositories that are private, and that's what they market to you to use.
That's actually what I use, and I really like it.
Do you? And it's free, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So this is probably your most graphic user interface just for Git, and it doesn't cost you any money. This is one built into the IDE for you, and this one is paid but amazing.
What about GitHub's client? They have their official.
Yeah, the bash.
That's what I use. That's awesome.
They have a UI as well now too, and I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, their GitHub client's awesome. That's what I use, and it works with Bitbucket. It works with local repositories too. It works with. It's awesome.
So GitHub apparently has their own that you can try.
And that's free. I like that one the best. It's simpler than SourceTree.
Really?
SourceTree is a little bit convoluted.
Huh.
It has less features though.
Can you do like branching or cherry picking or all that stuff?
Yeah, cherry picking, you can do branching. One thing you can't do with it is tagging, which is weird. So I just do that from the command line because it takes.
You don't. So on that note, you actually don't need to be able to tag from your user interface from the GitHub.com web interface. You can actually tag out right on the website. So you don't need any tools. You can just go to GitHub.com, go to your plugin, and then whatever code that you have in there at the time, you can just click the tag button and it will do all the work for you. So you can continue to use the GitHub UI, which doesn't do tagging because they made their web interface do the tagging. So that actually makes sense.
That might be why.
I do all my tagging from the website now. It's just way easier. I don't have to think about it. It does all the hard work for me. Okay, so step 4 is to create the first version of your plugin or theme. I'm going to say from now on just plugin, so that I don't have to say plugin or theme like 100 times. But this GitHub Updater does work for themes or plugins. The first thing that you're going to do, if you're not familiar with Git, is you're going to clone your repository. And what that means is you're going to bring the one file that comes with your repository down into your local development setup. Then what you're going to do is create your plugin or theme files. Maybe you already have them, so you've already been working on it, but you're going to now need to move them into your project, and then you will add them to Git. Any of the user interface clients will help you adding the files and committing them, which is the next step. So you set your version in your code in plugins. It'll be in your plugins PHP file, the primary file that you create when you start the plugin. If you want to know more about plugin development, it is available on the codex. It's a very good and lengthy instructional tutorial on how to create plugins for WordPress. In themes, you would set your version in your style.css. Because that is where all the metadata comes from for your theme. So you'll name your theme and the description and the author, and then one of those meta tags will give you your version. So you'll set that to 1.0.0, just as an example. And then you will commit and push. Commit and push means upload in FTP language, right? So that will move the code from your computer up onto GitHub. You will create. So the last part is what Jeremy was talking about that the UI won't do for you on GitHub's UI, is that you need to create a tag for this version of your plugin in Git or on GitHub.
That brings up a good point. So if you don't tag it on GitHub, because in typical WordPress repo, you just update the version number in your plugin.php file, and then you commit it, and then that updates. That's what triggers the update for everything else, is just updating that version number line.
Right.
So with this plugin, you're saying you have to tag it, and
correct.
Is that what triggers?
That is correct. Okay. So what the plugin is going to do after you tag is it's going to go out to GitHub every time that WordPress checks for updates, and it's going to say, what are all of the tags for this plugin? Well, in this case, there's only going to be one at this point in time. But in the future, there could be 100 tags. You might be on version 4.0, right? And so it's going to go get a list of all of your tags, and then it's going to compare the most recent tag to the current version you have. So if you have version 3.9 and it finds version 4.0, it's going to tell you have an update. But it won't do that unless you tag out. Step 5. So we have version 1 in the repository. Now we're going to talk about creating your first update. You're going to add an extra, so this is metadata, and it gives you both examples of a theme and a plugin. And this is just a screenshot from the GitHub README file of GitHub Updater plugin, so you can go read all of the documentation on how to use this. But what you're going to do is you're going to add this snippet of code here, or this snippet of code here, to your theme or plugin. He's just giving you an example, but if your plugin resides at github.com/afragan/test-child, then that is what you put there, and this is what tells GitHub Updater plugin where to go look for tags. So you're going to add this snippet of code to the bottom of your metadata in your plugin or theme, and that's what tells GitHub Updater plugin where to go check for updates. Questions about that? Yes?
Are you going to go over private repository?
I will briefly explain that it is enabled.
Okay.
But yes, it's in the deck. So then, like Michael Jackson, let's make a change. After you make your change, so let's say you updated the version of jQuery to load from the Google CDN using the enqueue script. Then you're going to commit that code and push, just like we previously did, to get version 1 in. We're going to change the version number of our plugin or theme, maybe to 1.0.1. And then we are going to tag, just like we did before. But now, GitHub will see version 1.0 tag, and it'll see version 1.0.1 tag. When you're done, WordPress will show you the nice little sync icon with a 1 in it that says that your plugin needs to be updated on your WordPress site. The update link will be there. You will click the update link, and it will pull the newest version down from GitHub for you. Insert ta-da sound here for those Windows 98 users. Extras, extended. Okay, so this is a little additional information for stuff that I didn't cover in the very basic creating your plugin with GitHub Updater. There are rollback options. This is not available from the WP.org system, so this is something that we built extra. Oh, I'm the co-author of this plugin, by the way.
Is this with 10up, the 10up version, or
No.
the different one?
Yes. I didn't know they had one.
Okay.
There wasn't one in the repository when we were making it. The only one that was in there was by the University of Florida, and it failed miserably, so we built our own.
And I mean, are you working with like PD Clark and stuff?
Paul Clark was on the project, but he's not really doing any work. So rollback options. So the additional thing that this gives you is if you update your plugin to version 1.0.1 and it breaks your website, what you would normally have to do is either have a backup, or you'd have to go to the WordPress.org website, know how to get to an older version of your plugin, download it, upload it back to your website, and then you would be set because you'd move back from 1.0.1 to version 1.0. WordPress doesn't really give you a good way to do that from the user interface. What GitHub Updater allows you to do is after you've updated to the most recent version, it gives you an option to roll back. So you update to 1.0.1, your website gets the white screen of death, you go back into the admin options, you say roll back to version 1.0.0, you click OK, it goes out and pulls that old version for you back into your website, activates it, and then you're back and rolling, just like you were before. The other thing that it gives you is we went the other direction. If you want to pull into your development site, the most recent in Git, it's called the master. So that's the code that you have that hasn't been tagged yet to a new version. So if you want that beta code to be on your website, there's a link that says update to beta. So you can update your website's code to the beta version simply by selecting the beta link at the top. I gave you all these examples because we had a very long and heated discussion about exactly how this feature was going to work. From developers that did things a certain way. Some developers use the dev branch for their development. Some people develop right in the master branch. Some people develop in a trunk in SVN. So if you're doing an SVN mirror, then you'll have a trunk area. And so we kind of had to account for all of these things. So if you read the documentation, you could learn how to switch between these. But if you don't do anything at all, it'll at least pull from your master branch, which is the default of where all your code goes if you followed the steps that I showed you today. The last extra option that you have with GitHub Updater is the ability to update from private repositories. So if you do not intend for your code to be used by anyone but yourself, you would use this.
So selfish.
What's that?
That's so selfish.
An example, you created a custom plugin for a client and it really only pertains to their website because you custom built their theme and the plugin and the theme go along together and they really should only be activated together on that one site. So it's not useful to anyone else. So proprietary stuff or just stuff that you don't want out there, you can do that. You can use private repositories with API keys. So it will go out and make sure If the API key is in your plugin, then it will know to go get updates from a private repository. If the API key is not in your plugin, then it does not. And the reason why they use keys is because you can create and deactivate these keys. So if you create a key and then you think it was stolen, you can deactivate it, create a new key, put those in your files, and then anyone that might have stolen your key no longer has access to your repository. Kind of like changing your password, right? So it does work with private repositories. There is documentation on how to set that up exactly on the GitHub. When you visit the plugin on GitHub, there's documentation at the bottom of every single plugin or code that's out there, and it tells you right how to do it, step by step in your plugin files. I think that's actually the end of my slides. Hopefully I blew through that so that I have some time to show you all of this. 7:32. Yeah, I got like 50 minutes.
Uh-oh.
Any questions about, I did go through that really fast. Is there like something you didn't understand?
Require the Git binaries to be installed, or does it just grab like a zip file?
It does not require Git to be installed on the server where the website is located. This process will push your files up to GitHub, but besides that, no, the server does not have to have Git for this process to work. Good question. Any other questions? Or do you want to see it?
Yes.
Did you just say no?
I said yes.
Oh.
No. Oh, my screens.
Okay. So my job was to get here an hour early today to set up a demo for you, and I failed to do said tasks. So
So
I'm
we're
just
gonna
going to
wing
wing it. And we have a little bit of time, so I also hope that we'll have plenty of time for other questions or open forum, so we don't just have to talk about GitHub Updater plugin today.
Can't win.
So this is my ideas portal. So every time I come up with a new idea and I have to do something about it, I create a new website here. Before I show you this, let's actually check out GitHub, and I'll show you how to find this plugin if you were to not use a link from my slide. So up here in GitHub, there's a search, and I'm going to type GitHub Updater plugin WordPress. There's the UCF, University of Central Florida, I think. The one that we're looking for is by A. Friggin. That is the author.
There's the 10-up one.
Yes.
That's the one I've been using, but I'm trying to find one that's updated more often.
Andy and I update with every WordPress release. Any second dot release. Wow. There's a lot of them now.
I know.
I wish these would have all been here before because I didn't really want to waste that much of my time redeveloping somebody else. There it is. So apparently, plugin is not anywhere in our description. I will mention that to Indy.
Not
So-
SEO experts, are you?
Andy is a surgeon. And so every Wednesday, Andy and I have a little Google Hangout, and, well, not every Wednesday, but every Wednesday that we need to talk about something, we have a Google Hangout. And so he's the first person that I have not met in person, but I've developed with, which is really awesome. I thought it was cool.
Where do you live?
Michigan. So Wednesdays he works from home, and Wednesdays I work from home, and it just works out.
Yeah, this is the non-active one.
It should just be GitHub.
Yeah, GitHub Updater.
Yeah. You are
I think it was-
absolutely correct. I don't know why it's not showing up.
I don't know. Yeah, when I searched it, I just searched GitHub Updater. Actually,
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay, so if you just search for GitHub Updater, it's apparently the first link. Here it is. Okay, so at the bottom of the screen, you get the README, which should tell you most of what you need to know about the plugin. You can see here all of the contributors, main contributors. It's GPL licensed, so you're welcome to take it, fork it, do whatever you want with it, make it your own. Here's the snippet that I had in my slide that shows you what you need to do inside of your theme or plugin. An installation process. I actually didn't copy any of this from his site, but it does tell you pretty much everything that I just told you today. Shows you what command line to use to download using Git. That's the cloning part of the. Okay, so here's the some examples of the snippet. So that I scrolled past it, but that's a theme. So if you're creating a theme, this is what the top of your style.css is going to look like, and here is the GitHub theme URI. And he even shows you how to select a branch if you're going to use the development platform of a branch besides master. You change this to dev or whatever branch that you're using. Oh, optional headers. So these are called headers, these meta values that you saw. Sorry. So these are all headers, and so the optional headers are GitHub access token, GitHub branch, which you do see here. Bitbucket branch, we are extending this plugin to work with Bitbucket. And so you use the GitHub access token, and then a colon, just like this, and then you put your token in there, and that would allow you to pull in from a private repository.
That's only on GitHub though.
But only, yeah.
On Bitbucket, it puts the username and the password in the URL in order to pull from it, like you did old FTP style. Remember that FTP links to the username and password? That's how you do it with Bitbucket.
So yeah, the Bitbucket portion of this is not, it's called GitHub Updater plugin. So obviously we didn't originally intend for it to be a part of Bitbucket, but
Jeez,
as
Seth.
Bitbucket becomes more popular.
Just get with it.
This tells you about tagging and how the updates work. Bitbucket support. There's now a Bitbucket branch header, so you can at least pull different branches from Bitbucket. Let's see if it has. Yep, it looks like he updated it. So this is how you pull a private repository from Bitbucket. Is in the Bitbucket plugin URI, which is right here. So this would be your header, and then you change it so that you have the password here. /owner/repo.
So there's an error though.
So if you want to help him figure this out, there is an issue.
Yeah.
I thought that there was something that we hadn't finished yet.
WordPress gives like a bad zip file error.
Oh, really?
I was gonna say, I thought I had tried that months ago and no success. That would explain that.
So the other thing that Andy wanted me to tell you about, because I tweeted out about this presentation and he caught on and responded back, is that if you want to host a plugin on the wp.org repository and in GitHub, we are enabling that so that they don't conflict with each other. So if you wanted to update from one or the other, you can now control that. So you can have your plugin in the repository or not, or in both places. And he will walk you through a little bit about that here. And of course, we have the GitHub Updater issues page. So any GitHub project will have basically a ticketing system where you can come in, and if you have a problem with this plugin, you can create your own issue here, and then we will take a look at it and respond to you and let you know in what version that comes out that we will fix your particular issue. And look, that looks like a familiar question. Does Git need to be installed on the server for the plugin to work? No. Yeah, we've had some issues because there are actually a few other features that I didn't cover. One of them is that it goes to GitHub to get your, I don't know if you've ever installed a theme and looked at any of the options, but one of the options is view details, and it like pops up a window and gives you information from wp.org. That's really hard to do for GitHub especially. So we designed a system to do that, and then in the transition from WordPress 3.8 to WordPress 3.9, they completely redid the way that themes work in WordPress, and it really broke everything that we had built for it. So we're in the process of rebuilding that now. We fixed most of the problems, but don't be surprised if you go to see theme details and it doesn't show you exactly what you were thinking was going to show up. So that is the GitHub Updater plugin on GitHub.
Can I ask you a question? It's around that idea. Do you put your custom plugins, like you're saying, that don't really apply to any other project on the planet, do you put those on GitHub?
I have a private GitHub account.
Okay, so you do keep them private.
I do. There are not very many, but yeah, most of my stuff is public. In fact, I have a WordPress Phoenix group on GitHub for local development and Phoenix projects.
Do you have any thoughts about being private or public for those one-off type plugins, or? I mean, that's why I use Bitbucket, because I'm too cheap to pay. GitHub.
Well, it's not cheap either. You're talking like $15 to $25 a month, depending on exactly how many repositories you have. So.
Yeah, so that's why I use Bitbucket, because almost all my plugins, I do have some on GitHub, my ones that are in the WordPress repo, I just put those on GitHub, but then on Bitbucket, all my custom stuff is on Bitbucket. It's free, so.
I'd probably keep it that way.
Yeah.
It's the same with us.
It's free on Bitbucket. Yeah, that's why I use Bitbucket.
For private.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use Bitbucket for private, GitHub for public.
So the difference
Yeah,
is the pricing layout. In Bitbucket, they charge you depending on how many users need access to the repository. So if it's just you, or just you and one other person, I think there's...
It's up to 5 users for free.
Oh, it's up to 5, okay. So you can have up to 5 people contributing to the same code at the same time. On GitHub, you can have 100 people contributing to the code, but it depends on how many repositories you want. So you only get like 10 repositories for like 25 or 50 bucks a month. I mean, it is pretty expensive.
But, well, Bitbucket, if you want, you can have unlimited private on Bitbucket. On GitHub, you can have unlimited public, right?
Yes, you have an unlimited public.
So that's just how I've been working it. Public goes to GitHub, private goes to Bitbucket.
Yep. A little side note, how many of you have heard of Gist? G-I-S-T. Oh, good, most of you. Have you heard of Gist Box? Yeah, I can show you something here. Okay, so Gists are really awesome. They're like snippets of code that you want to save. You probably save them in like a notepad somewhere, or maybe if you're using Dreamweaver, you use snippets, or Sublime Text I think has snippets too. Anyways, so what if you wanted to like keep track of like how the code changed in that snippet of code because you liked it better how it was last year before you messed with it? So Gist is a way of sharing code as well, and Gistbox is a web service that connects. Okay. Let me do it on mine. Gistbox app caches all of your gists locally and provides you a search engine of just your own gists. So just as an example, I have an auto login. So when sometimes I get client information and all they have is FTP information, and I'm like, where's my WordPress login? And they're like, oh, I don't know how to get in there. So I built a function that lets me log in as to a user without user credentials. I know, it sounds really safe, doesn't it? It's just temporary. So let's search for login. So here's my require login script. I copied this into the functions file. I visited a URL, which you would be able to figure out if you read through the entire script here. It logs me in as an admin user. I then go into the site, I create myself my own admin user, and then I turn this back off, and the site is secure again. But I use gists for things like this. Like that is code that's never permanently going to stay on any website, but I use it all the time.
You can only do that with FTP though, right?
Correct. You would need FTP access to use PHP code or update the theme or plugin. You'd have to stick it somewhere that it's loading.
Nobody could do some kind of injection?
It's not to say that they couldn't do the injection. It depends on what plugin you have loaded. If you have a plugin loaded that is allowing a form to submit into the database, and that plugin did not escape the value before it comes in, they can inject whatever the code they want, which is the danger of WordPress and open source. But if the plugin is created properly and has escaped that information, no, there's no.
How do you figure that out? Is there a plugin for that?
Is there a plugin to figure out if your website's safe?
If your plugin
It's
has
called
been-
WP Engine, because they block stuff that is
Oh,
not
is that right?
safe. And they review code because they want their servers to be safe.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, pay $25 per domain for your websites, host with WP Engine, and your problem would be solved.
Was the question if looking at somebody else's plugin or your own?
Somebody else's.
Oh, okay.
Looking at your own plugin, it's semi-easy. Anywhere that the user could
Yeah, it's your
add or modify anything in the database, you would check those lines of code and make sure that they do or don't need to be escaped. That's what WordPress calls it. And they have several escaping functions that are all available on the codex. If you Google escaping WordPress, you will get everything that you need to know about properly coding for secure plugins and themes. Themes are far more dangerous. I've seen lots of themes that do insecure things. Plugins, like just the innate ability of a developer to create a plugin versus a theme, they tend to be a lot safer with their code. That personality type is just different than the I'm going to develop a theme and pray that I sell 1 billion copies for $1. That's just a different mentality than the plugin mentality. So most of the issues I find. But if you want, for example, if you go to WP Engine, blacklisted plugins, you can find a group of plugins you should not be using on your website. So this is the disallowed plugins page.
Well, except for those
Right.
first.
They tell you why, but they tell you why some of them because they're insecure or they're not allowed. But
They duplicate functionality provided by WP.
Because those caching plugins are fine, it's just that.
server and MySQL thrashing plugins. Don't install any of these unless you don't care about performance on your websites. I actually used Tweet Blender for years, but apparently I was killing.
Oh no, it doesn't say anything bad about Tweet Blender aside from it doesn't play nicely with their caching layer.
Oh,
Well, and
Increased
can
server
cause
load.
increased server load, but yeah.
That's because they didn't use tweets. So every time you loaded the page, it would call an API, Twitter API.
Right.
Broken link checker. Anyway, so I would read through this page if you want to know like some do's and don'ts about plugins or why they use them or why they don't. I found it to be very informational about plugins that I was already using.
They have suggestions and stuff too for replacements, which is nice.
Yes. they
Like
do.
there's Google Sitemaps plugins that are on the disallowed list, and a lot of people want those, and so they have good suggestions.
I would think you could also just do a Google search and look up security for some of those too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was WP Engine's blog article. Talked a little bit about JustBox. I think it's fantastic. Again, great way to share code. I can then tweet this out from here if I want to share it on Twitter or copy it and email it to somebody or whatever I want to do. And then they can actually go and make comments on my code, and I can see their comments, or they can recommend an update, like if I mistyped something, or there's misspelling, or it crashed their server, or whatever. JustBox, really awesome. Okay, back to the alien down here. Okay, so this is a standard WordPress site. It does have a custom theme on it. Go to /admin. Of course, this is not my last pass, or it would have logged me in already. Of course, that's not the password.
Well, it's because you're trying to do a live demo.
I know. When? I remember it. No, I don't want you to remember. Oh, never click Save Password here. It will save your password in plain text for any plugin in Google Chrome. In fact, there is an option I'm going to go turn on right now that'll stop that from ever even prompting me. Let's do that again.
Not to ever click yes. Why do you say not to click yes?
It saves it in plain text for any Google Chrome plugins. So not just anything, like a JavaScript isn't going to get in and get it, but if you install a Google Chrome plugin that is just there to look really cool, like it's going to do something awesome for you, and realize it's going to steal all your username and passwords.
Okay.
When you install LastPass, it proves that to you because it shows you all your passwords in plain text. Awesome, huh? So, passwords and forms, uncheck the enable autofill, uncheck the offer to save your passwords, and okay, so when I go to updates, you will notice that there's an update to my theme. So this is my custom theme. It's called White Label Framework. The version that's on this site is version 2.0.3. Can you all see this? Not too big. So you have version 2.0.3 installed. It found that I've tagged version 2.0.6, which is obviously newer, and it gives me the ability to update here. Let's go check it out on GitHub. White label framework is. So we have 29 releases. Codename Catfish, recently released. So you can see this is the version I had before. The newest version that I recently tagged out on March 14th.
Why don't you skip digits so you can have odd numbers all the time?
No, I had multiple local revisions.
Oh.
So that's why there are different numbers there. So here you can clearly see I have two different, I've tagged twice, right? I tagged for 2.0.3, which is what's on there right now. It found 2.0.6. We can go back and view the code here. This is all open source, by the way, so any of you can go and view this particular theme to see how it works with GitHub Updater plugin. So there's the style.css file. You can see I didn't put it at the bottom, but I did put it in here. It's going to load this as the GitHub Updater theme URI. So that's where it's going to get the tags. It's pulling from the master branch, which is the default. Here. I'm actually going to go now into Appearance to show you another way that you can update your. That's the if you want to update all of your themes at the same time screen. This is the actual theme screen. You can see the update available, just like you would expect to see here. I click the details. An update is available. A new version of White Label Framework is available now. I added this little last part just so that you knew it was coming from the GitHub Updater plugin. You can not click View 2.0.6 details because I just told you that it broke when they updated to 3.9, so don't bother. But if you click Update Now, it's thinking. You will see right here that it's actually pulling your update from api.github.com/repos/WordPress Phoenix/White Label Framework, and then the version is 2.0.6. It unpacks it, installs it. So this is extra. You won't see this on WordPress updates, but when you pull something from GitHub, you actually have to rename the folder name because the branch is appended at the end of the folder name, or you end up with a theme-branch folder in your themes folder. Theme folder name corrected, removing old version of the theme, and theme updated successfully. So now when I go back to the update screen, there should be nothing here because we're now all up to date. I'm also running version 4 of WordPress here. So nothing to update anymore. We come back into Appearance, and you can see that our White Label Framework plugin is now completely up to date, version 2.0.6.
Sweet, clap.
Yay, get updated. Any more questions about GitHub Updater? Cool. So what else do you guys want to talk about? Any questions? Burning questions? Projects you're working on, can't find an answer? Crickets?
I'll ask the question. Is there a simple utility you can run just to check all your plugins against a new WordPress rep and see if it's okay? Is there something like that?
Is there something that you can, a
Verify that
utility?
your plugins won't break on a new rep on WordPress.
No, you would need a staging site where you would clone whatever website you have, and then you would update, and then you'd make sure that it works. No, there's no utility that's going to be able to check them for you.
Well, yeah, so I was thinking more like the community keeps on checking and say, hey, this plugin broke with the
Yes,
WordPress. So is there
there is. So if you go to WordPress.org,
Yeah.
and you are using WordPress.org plugins,
Yeah.
we go to plugins, we'll do WordPress SEO. Scroll down, you look on the right side over here, and you see that 10 people say that this plugin works with the most recent version.
Yeah, there's no utility that just takes that for every one of your plugins and gives you the.
No, but that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Part of the challenge is that there are so many explicit use cases. So many people have so many different combinations of
Oh, yeah.
things that, like, I've had plugins that just broke the style specifically, and it's broken in my mind, and I need to go and fix it and, you know, figure out time to do that. But that doesn't mean the plugin itself
Right,
is
but he's saying,
broken.
like, if I went to my WordPress plugin update screen and there are 10, what if it pulled in the metadata from WordPress.com?
Oh,
It says it works, so it doesn't work. And 10 people said it's okay.
I just gave you that info.
yeah.
That would be really useful.
That would be
So if
nice,
you go
yeah.
down and there's like a doesn't work, like, don't update that one, right?
Good idea.
Yeah.
Or disable completely.
Build it.
But yeah,
I would
really
love to
fantastic
see
idea.
info on that same screen that had when the plugin was last updated.
Mhm.
There's a,
Just a quick reference rather than having to go check.
I think there's pretty active discussion right now about redoing the whole plugins page screens anyways.
Oh,
So
I'll have to check that out on.
I think that page has been pretty stagnant for quite a while.
Yeah.
So that's the issue, is they're thinking about how to redo
They,
it.
in the 3.8, they added the stars, so obviously they've been working on the page.
Yeah. It's
So-
been really minor things, but they're talking about redoing. I mean, they recently redid all the themes pages, and now they're kind of thinking the same thing with plugins. So
Yep.
hopefully it'll be a lot more useful soon.
I'm sure that will make my GitHub update help, but
And that's something that Jeremy brings up that I don't check often enough. And Seth's saying you're on 4.0. Like, they're making progress in developing 4.0, and that means you've probably been reading at make.wordpress.org.
I do sometimes, but
But I feel like I should check that more often. Just, you know, if you're managing a
what's going
site
on.
and it's good to know what's coming, you can get a lot of detailed information on planned feature changes and updates and
like I
cool
can tell
things
you
like
that
that.
they've been working really hard on documentation because they just created a documentation task force. So that basically they're people that already work for the WordPress.org core team, but they have now a secondary job, like 6 or 7 people, and documenting WordPress.com and its updates and the core functions and hooks and filters and all that stuff. So they're completely revamping the developer's handbook, which most people don't even know exists. They're making it searchable. They're adding new style and design, of course, because of, wait, what's her last name now? Mary Jane Wells, right? Now, who is she?
Jen Milo.
Jen Milo.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, she changed her name.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's a UI person, and so they're redeveloping the UI of the developer's handbook as well. So that's coming in the next 12 months. I would expect to see some publicity on it. So they're trying to make education better and documentation better because they know that right now it's basically a wiki. Like if the community doesn't update it, it doesn't get updated. So they have a task force that's on that, and you'd only know that, right? If you were, like Mara was saying, if you were involved in the community and going to these sites and subscribing to the news. So if you're into developing just WordPress, then that might be a really great place for you to start subscribing to. No other burning questions? This is your only chance.
Can I ask a CSS
Sure.
question?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm using a CSS animate to take over control of the scroll bar and do some fancy animation on scrolling. And I have, the plugin is working except for Safari browsers. And it's when I'm on a page and I'm trying to go to a hashtag so that I can go down into the page. It's a spa
Right.
theme. And it works on Chrome, but it's breaking for Safari. Safari is just going to the top of the page and not to the hashtag. Does anyone know?
So you're talking about
Anything
CSS3? Are you sure it's only using
It's not
CSS?
CSS3. It's not a CSS3 transition. It's using CSS Animate, which is an animation.
jQuery plugin?
It's a jQuery. It's a jQuery. I haven't actually run this.
Yeah, because most of the
I haven't
animations
Googled
are
that. That's CSS3 animations, but there's a thing called CSS Animate that allows you to do some nice CSS animations.
I don't know. I have not played with CSS Animate. Anyone else heard of? No? Sorry, we got nothing
Okay,
for
that's okay. Nobody was asking, so I just.
you.
Yeah.
So I have a Git related kind of question, and that is more kind of, I'm looking for a discussion on how everybody uses GitHub. I know we use it for theme and plugin development, but does anyone here use it for site management, for backups of just the site to make it easy to roll back? Do you have a Git repo basically at the core? And how common is that? Like, is that something that
Nick,
I should be doing, looking into? I mean,
I do it.
it seems like a
From,
huge
from
repo,
the
so
very beginning of WordPress?
Yeah, I host on HostGator.
yeah.
And I don't have control over what the heck's going on sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm just going in and saying, any update that I make, I'm going to take a snapshot, update it. So
That's smart. Yeah.
How about the media folder? Do you exclude it?
No, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Media
It's
folder
really
being where your pictures go and you upload them through the WordPress interface. It could be 2 gig, and you don't want that in your Git repository. So Git allows you to ignore certain folders within the. In fact, ignoring all images folders might not be a horrible idea, but
Yeah.
I do not. I only host the WP content folder in my Git repositories. I do create projects per domain name, so like SethCarstens.com might have its own, and then all you see in the repository is the WP content folder because it's all I care to track. If you wanted to go crazy with it, you could probably put WordPress in, because WordPress is in Git.
Mhm.
You could use it as a submodule, so you could stick WordPress in as a submodule as to not have to actually keep all those files in your.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was just debating on that, especially with already being on WP Engine with a lot of sites. They're taking backups regularly. We're taking as well. So where does Git fall into that? Because it's offered, I have it available to me as a tool, but at the same time, where would that fall into the workflow?
So the GitHub is not a backup from here.
Yeah, no, I don't, and that's where I'm like, I already have backups in
If
place.
you put core under version control, it'll stop auto update.
Oh, that's good to know. I hadn't really thought of that.
Just use
But-
Git
It'll take your
for development.
development.
Yeah.
What's that?
I was saying just use Git for development. I don't really see it as a backup in any way.
So another developer that frequents our group, Nick, he uses it as a backup. So if something happens or a plugin gets updated that shouldn't have been, he has the previous version or a working version that he had. So he does use it that way. I do not, but he definitely, the other reason he uses it that way is he does local development a lot. Like everything that he does, he develops locally. And if in your Git repo that you're cloning, you're not getting the entire WordPress installed, then you don't have everything you need to develop locally. So he puts everything in his repository so that when he develops locally and saves stuff before he commits it to the Git repo, it's all there. WordPress, all the plugins, everything.
That's how I did it.
And that's how you
Yeah, I
do
can
it.
see a case for that.
Yeah, I can totally
For-
see that.
WP Engine people like us, then I don't see the point. We already got all the backup and rollback and look at that.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm
And
like, how would I
staging
fit that into
yeah.
my workflow? Could I add something more that I'm really missing out on?
Local
Yeah.
development.
Well, yeah, but even then, you know, if you're using the other tools and, you know, using Git already for the themes.
You just wouldn't be able to track from WP content. You just have to have a Git repo just for your theme, right?
Right, yeah. Well, and the challenge with local development is you run into the whole database sync as well. So at that
Sync,
point, it's,
difference in server settings between local. and
yeah,
remote.
at that point, it's moot. Or
Did somebody else
challenging
have
at best.
Engine gives you a staging site?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you click a button, you wait until it emails you, it tells you the staging site has been rebuilt, assuming you had one before, or it creates it for you the first time. You go there, you make all of your changes, and then what do you do when you move? I haven't never.
You hit the
push
deploy
live
button.
Yeah,
can
the
push
deploy.
live.
There's a button, and you can either move just whatever you've changed file-wise, or you can move all the tables or select individual tables as well as deploying the files. So there's a lot
You can't pick which files you move. It moves everything, but it lets you pick what tables you want.
Why wouldn't you just move everything?
Because if you have like an e-commerce site or anything changing on your live site, like say sales are happening, and then you stage the site, now they're at the
or
same.
posts or
So you're gonna
comments.
overwrite all the
If
stuff
you use
happening.
WordPress comments, if anyone made a comment on your live site and then you move staging over, you're going to lose any
Yeah,
comments.
you overrode everything.
Yeah.
So that's why by default it just moves just the files because it's figuring you're using staging for developing something. So all your code and stuff moves over, and then I move tables selectively all the time. I do a lot because if you know that nothing
The
is
options
changing.
table, I would guess, would be the most common to move.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
if you know WP option hasn't changed, or a lot of times there's posts, like say you do some custom like gravity form stuff that I'm doing a lot of right now, and then I need to, I create a new page that has a gravity form on it. Now you can move WP post table on.
That's cool. I've never moved. I've just always moved my files to the website.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for the answers. I feel better about the fact that I'm not missing out on something.
Nope, you're not. Just the local dev, I think, would be the only reason to do anything different.
And on that
Sounds like
topic
you
of
did that.
WP Engine and Git, WP Engine does have Git push, so you can push directly to WP Engine through Git. So they allow that. You can push to either staging or live. They allow both.
So that would be like replacing Git deployment.
Right.
Yes.
Well, that's
I don't
nice.
use that, but because I develop directly on staging.
Great. Awesome. Well, it's 8:10, so you guys, I think half an hour, 8:45, we should all be leaving. In case you're new, most of us, or some of us, or maybe just me, are going to head over to KO's. It's a sports bar just up the street for our drinks or dinner if you're starving or whatever. We sometimes talk about WordPress. We sometimes talk about our children. It's just general conversation, so you're welcome to join us over there. If you don't know where it is, you can Google "Take Me to K. O'Donnell's" and it will walk you 3 blocks up the street here. So if you're interested in that, or you can follow the train of cars that is heading that way.
Cool. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.